All right, guys, Sam back with you here. Final coin of the day as we sit here midday on February 28th and per member's request and the voting that we do every day. Last one is Reddcoin. This is Reddcoin to Bitcoin. Now, I've got this up here. This is the 1 hour chart here. Now, Reddcoin has actually been around for quite a while. So if we over here, we look here on CoinGecko, it's been around for about 4 years. Now, as you'd hope for a coin that's been around that long, the scoring is good here. We're 59 here, 65 on the developer in the development metric here. Market cap for a coin that's been around that long is a bit on the lower side, 245 million. You know, you might expect more than that from a coin that's been around this long, but we go over to the trading exchange and we see where it's trading. It's almost 100% to Bitcoin, and almost all of the volume is on Bittrex. In fact, 95% of it. So clearly, that's where we're going to look at it. So let's have a look at Reddcoin and see if there's any opportunities here. It's had a lot of volatility. Now, I've got a 1 hour chart up here with my work on it. I'm going to go out just to show you the perspective here. So we've had in this long journey we've been on here with Reddcoin that you know, this is, see, I would not consider that a 1-2. I would just consider that a complete round trip. You know, we're coming all the way back down to where there's, you know, depending on how you want to think of it, this is an accumulation phase. We've had this rip up and we've come back down here again. And so things that you might pay attention to, as I will often suggest, you want to wick off prior lows. I don't know that we're heading back down there. That's going to play anymore. But these are, you know, they have a tendency to at times come back into play in the market. So those are things to wick off just so you know that they're there. And over here, all I've done is wick off this absolute low. So I see round trip here. We start the whole cycle again here. Now let's dig in a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the 1 hour here and we can look at it. So there's that low. That's just the lowest low I could find. Here are those two pivots that I wicked off before. You see, interestingly, how they came into play in what I would propose to you as a 1-2, whether we've got a true double top. Doesn't get any more perfect than that. So we do get this. We do not get an impulse wave here. So we get a 1, 2, 3. We overlap the 1 clearly. So what's unusual about this is, given that we have a diagonal, we end with a perfect impulse. You know, I mean, there it is. We can't argue with it. Or see, with a diagonal, you'd expect more of a 3-wave, but we get an absolutely perfect impulsive wave. 1, 2, 4 comes down, just barely misses, but does not overlap that 1, like perfect pivot. Then we get the 1, 2, 3, 4, up we go for the 5, and we double top. So you could certainly make a case that all we have done here is put in a 1 wave, and we'd be going down here for a big 2 and 3, 4, and 5. So if I take that up a couple of degrees, there, you know, is that possible? It's possible, sure. Yeah, we might be putting in a very deep 2 here. So we've got now a WXY is difficult to count it any other way. So this was relevant here to this 4, not relevant anymore. But you see how it came into play right here. This prior resistance offered the support that gave us that B wave. I'm going to take that off just so we don't pollute the chart. We just can see a little bit more clearly with what we're going to talk about here. So if that were to be, if this is a 1, 2, well, we know the 3, 4, and 5 are going to be much, much higher, right? So we know potential is there. It's just that. It's just the potential for this to be going higher. If we look at this, there was a case that maybe we had a diagonal, and I suppose, you know, if you really stretch, you could make a case that there could be one more push up here to give us a diagonal if we could get a 1, 2. Well, I don't like the look of it. That's awfully deep for a 4, but the potential is there, and that would give us a 1 wave coming off of this low. But you got to look at this and say, all right, what are the algorithms doing in here? So where are they? This is a fairly well-established long downtrend that we've been in here. Are we still just correcting that move from this low because we have a swing low to swing high? We are still internal. We are still making an internal correction. So you got to kind of look at this and say, all right, well, you know, I do have an ABC. There's my X wave. That's the correction. That's the corrective wave. And then we come down here. This is a candidate for another ABC to finish the Y. Again, WXY, just connecting, not complicated, just connecting one ABC with another via the X wave. AB, You know, it's not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but there you go. There's a pivot that we can work with. So you kind of want to dig in here and say, you know, what are the odds that that's my good pivot? Because this now, at this point, your eye just sees that looks three-wave. That looks like it's just corrective. So you got to kind of dig in here a little bit and go, okay, well, was this, you know, was this technical on the way down? So I'd pull to the A and check that out and say, okay, well, that's kind of, oh, wow, look at that. So we come, here's the A wave down here. We go to the B, which is a perfect tick of the 50. Right, we know a B wave can be anywhere from the 50 to the 786. Well, it blows right through the first target. Here's the second target, the 618. We rip back up, and then we come all the way back down to their final target at -100 to the tick. So algos have had a good ride in there, but that's you know, so that tells us something. You know, we hit here this move here. So if I were, you know, if you were trading it, you'd have done this. You'd have pulled here. Well, look here, we front run on the 618. All right, we get between the 50 and the 618. We come down here now potentially. So what do we see there? We know that was a technical pivot relative to this pull. All right, so that was all, you know, if I get it right on there, it's just about to the tick for that as a good low, but you wouldn't have known that was going to be there. So you'd have taken that. There's the 65. I'm not saying I or any of us would have shorted that. I'm just telling you algorithms would sell that. And here's their target. This could be a front run on that. You know, so we would just continue to check here. So what you got to do is look at this and go, okay, well, why did it stop there? Is that a technical pivot? You know, there's nothing great here from an Elliott perspective that, you know, so first thing you might do and go, okay, well, if that's my good low, if that's potentially a one wave, well, you know, you can make the case here that you have a one here. You go between the 50 and the 618. You catch the Vegas wave. You got to push up to algo targets. It overlaps now. So you might say, is this a 1, 2, 3? Well, that's mighty deep for a 4 if it's going to be a diagonal. Has it happened before? Sure, it's possible. But with the break of the 65, I don't like that because that tells me algos will have flipped here and they'll sell the next 50 on the way back up. So if I just take this to here, we know we're going to have, doesn't mean we couldn't get through it, just means we're going to have resistance here and here. We got to get through that. But it makes me wonder about this pivot. Why do we start here? There's no structure. There's no prior resistance or support, anything that I can latch onto there, and we don't even make this right here. So I kind of got to go back to that and go, well, wait a minute, what would the algorithms have been using? Well, we knew this was so remember we had this, that was a perfectly technical pivot, got them right to their target. So I'd be inclined to do this, is look to that low here, because we're hoping that's a technical pivot. We know this was incredibly technical on this B wave here, and what does that give us? 618 to the tick. So there it is. That's what they're using for whatever reason. So you can see here the front run on the 50. You get a reaction, doesn't get there, go back up. They test it again. There's the 618, and so what does that set up? Well, that sets up for a target down here that pushes us all the way back down here, which coincidentally, right? Remember where we started, where we wicked off those prior highs. And when it came into play here, went right into our second. Well, there's our algo target, our -23.6, just a few ticks below that prior pivot. So could the two be moving over here? You know, we don't know yet, but it certainly gets my attention. So if I look at that, that does not get me excited about a long there. I mean, I'd like it a whole lot better down here. You know, it's not a great Elliott setup for you. That's a lot of complexity for a second, but it's, you know, it's possible. But this gets my attention. So I would like it down here. So we get a natural little band down here where I'd be interested in being a buyer. Until then, you know, I don't know why you would kind of force that. There's just not enough. There's not enough. It's just not good enough. And you can make the case here that you could probably make a case for this, that you've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a 5, and now that degree is crazy. So let's get this down. You know, all that's telling me is that potentially here, if I did an A, B, C here, and then I'm coming down, that could be an A wave or a one wave. I'm going to go with an A wave here, implying that there's another A, B, C to come. So if this is playing as an A wave, come here, as an A wave, then I'd be looking to get there in that fashion. So if I put the put the wave on that. So we maybe an ABC. We don't know that this is bottomed here, but eventually, if we get a pivot here, so we could look for a potential zone where we'd expect that to pivot. So if I just pull from my swing low to swing high, right? We see we've broken the 65. Next stop 786, reasonable place for support. Could that play? Well, then we know algos will have flipped with that break. So if we take this back around, we can see, okay, there's a path for us to get there if I get that right on there. So if I'm going to come down here, I'm hypothetical here, but I don't know where the low is. So is it here? Is it here? Somewhere around here, we're likely to put in that low, get a retracement on that. That's where algos will be selling right here between the 50 and the 618. Again, I'm hypothetical here. I don't know where the low is. So I get there's a target for them, but then here's this other target for them that we established previously. Right in that zone, here's their second target, the negative 618. And we're still working off of the idea that this might be our 2. So all that is just a potential path, nothing more. But it's just not good enough to take this for a long. I don't see any reason why you'd be trying to force it there unless you're in love with the fundamental story and you're just looking for a reasonable place. So you can make the case, am I buying it wholesale or retail here? So if you want to think of it that way, I think that it's a better looking buy down here, considering its history and what we see technically. Love it down here. I don't love it so much here. But right now, all I'm anticipating is that it's going to face some stiff resistance going back up. Because this was technical, right? So as I showed you, from this pivot to this pivot, for whatever reason, that's what the algos are using, went right to the 618. We've got this zone down here. So if I were looking for an entry, which I'm not in this coin, but if I were, I like it a whole lot better down here. So first thing I would do is I'd alarm this, which is going to be a challenge of this low. I'd alarm that 23, that negative 23, see if we're heading there. Then I'd want to see if there's a push further to get down here to this zone. So I've got a hot box here. So I've got that. I would get alerts on this. I've got my entry, sort of mapped out here. I've got a potential roadmap. If I were to pull this chart up a week from now and that was headed back down here, or 2 weeks, or whatever the time frame is, well, there I just leave it like that. If the alerts start going off, then I start paying attention to it. Put it in a watch list. If it gets down here, well, then I'll seriously consider whether or not that looks good enough for a buy, because the risk reward will be insane, right? So if this is a 1-2, well, we know that all of this action is going to be way, way, way up higher, way higher. Can it get there? Our alt's going to turn around. This does not look like it so far, but down here, it's hard not to love that, because you're certainly buying at a previous support zone. So if we go all the way back, that's why you do these, right? So here, right, those prior pivots, that we had to go all the way back to, I think I have to go to the 12-hour to get that. All the way back, right? So here, that creates, so look at our little pocket down here. On sale. All right, guys.